So today we'll be discussing the universal and area-specific curettes. These instruments are similar in many ways, however there are various differences as well. The universal curettes consist of the Barnhart 5.6 and the Columbia 1314. These instruments are manufactured similarly, but the Barnhart is 2 to 3 millimeters longer, making it indicative for deeper pockets. Both universal curettes and Gracey's have the same parts: a handle, a shank, and a working end, but universals have 4 cutting edges in total and 2 on each side. The Gracey's only have 2 cutting edges, 1 on each side. The angulation of these instruments also differ. Universals have the face of the blade at a 90 degree to the terminal shank, whereas Gracey's come in at a 70 degree angle to it. Both these instruments have rounded toes, making it easier for insertion into the sulcus, which would be indicative by blanching of the gingiva. Indications for both these instruments are the use to remove small to moderate calculus deposits. The universal curettes can be used on both anterior and posterior teeth. Both these instruments can be used both sup and supragingivally. Universal curettes are often used on clients with health dentition, and Gracey's can be used on those with slight to severe periodontal pockets. Gracey curettes are area specific, which means unlike the universal, one would need to switch an instrument depending on what surface of the tooth the hygienist is working on. Gracey 1-2s are meant specifically for anterior teeth, for towards and away surfaces, canine to canine. Gracey 11-12s are for the mesial posterior surfaces, moving from the distal line angle to the mesial interproximal space. And then the Gracey 13-14s are made for distal posterior surfaces, moving from the distal line angle to the interproximal space distally. Keep in mind, you must rock and roll these instruments using a modified pen grasp as well, like this. Some contraindications for the universal is that it is not to be used on green calculus because of underlying demineralized enamel. The same Gracey cannot be used on all surfaces of the tooth because of the area-specific design. Both instruments follow the close, insert, open, and activate rule for anterior and posterior teeth. They both close at 0 to 40 degrees, are inserted, blanching the gingiva as an indicative factor. They open at 60 to 70 for cementum and 70 to 80 for enamel, and are activated using short, overlapping strokes. The angle of the terminal shank for these curettes show a major difference physically when instrumenting. For the universal curette, when inserted, the angle of the terminal shank is away from the tooth. For Gracey's, the angle of the terminal shank is parallel to the tooth surface to be instrumented on. We will now be instrumenting using both the universal and Gracey curettes.
We will now be using the universal curette on teeth numbers 7 and 8 towards surfaces and 8 o'clock position. We will now be doing the lingual surfaces on teeth numbers 7 and 8 with the universal curette. We will now be using the universal curette on tooth number 7 and 8 away positions at 12 o'clock. We will now be doing the lingual surfaces of tooth number 7 and 8 away at a 12 o'clock position. We will now be doing tooth numbers 3 and 4 using the universal curette at the 10 o'clock position. We start off at the distal line angle, keep rocking and rolling, and then you turn it to work mesially. And notice how the terminal shank is not parallel, it is away from the tooth. Same thing with this one, distal line angle, parallel. We will now be working on the palatal surfaces of tooth numbers 3 and 4 using the universal curette. Always make sure you go all the way interproximal, take a tooth, and then work your way mesially until you're in that interproximal space. Same thing with the premolar, stabilize your fulcrum. All the way interproximally. We will now be working on tooth numbers 18 and 20 since number 19 is missing using the universal curette. Insert distally all the way to the interproximal space. Same thing. To the interproximal space. We will now be working with the Gracey 1-2 on the mandibular anterior surfaces on tooth numbers 25 and 26. We will now be doing the lingual surfaces using the Gracey 1-2 on tooth numbers 25 and 26. Do the away surfaces on tooth numbers 25 and 26 using the Gracey curettes. Same thing. then lingually. Be sure to always have the correct working end. Notice how the palm is facing up when working on the maxillary and how it faces down working on the mandibular. We'll now be using the Gracey 1314 on tooth numbers 29 and 30 for the distal surfaces only. So you insert, open, activate until you get into the interproximal space. Insert, open, activate to the interproximal space. You'll now be working on the lingual surfaces using the Gracey 1314, moving distally on tooth numbers 29 and 30. Using the Gracey 11 and 12 to work mesially on both tooth numbers 29 and 30, lingually and buccally. Notice how the terminal shank is parallel to the surface of the tooth you're working on. And then lingually. And approximately. We will now be using the Gracey Curette 1314 on tooth numbers 1314 on the distal surfaces. So you insert, open, get interproximally, insert, open, interproximally. We will now be working on the palatal surface of tooth number 1314 using the same Gracey Curette. We will now be working on the mesial surfaces of tooth numbers 13 and 14 using Gracey 1112. So you insert, open, activate, and move interproximally. The V is to the D. Insert, open, activate. And now we'll be doing it lingually. Always be sure to check your working end.